Hello guys, welcome back. In this video we'll be discussing about the development of embryo. So what happens or what leads to form the embryo, that will be discussing. So basic idea is that we have discussed till the zygote formation and all. So basically what happens after the zygote is formed. So zygote is formed, it is basically a single nucleus is there, single cell we can say, single nucleus. So how could a single cell become such a big individual? That is, we can call it as offspring of the new individual has to be formed, right? So from the single cell it is difficult to form, we can say, right? So what happens is that the zygote divides, or we can say, yeah, basically divides its cells, divides repeatedly. So basic idea here is that the zygote divides repeatedly. To why it divides repeatedly? In order to give rise to what? A group of cells, we can say. A bag of cells or a ball of cells, something, right? So basically zygote is a single cell with one nucleus and basically divides repeatedly in order to form a group of cells. Now what happens? The group of cells and then forms a group of tissues. Group of tissues then forms, we can say, group of cells forms tissues. Then from tissues it forms organs. From organs it can form organ system. That's the thing. So I'll repeat my statement. Zygote is a single cell nucleus, right? One nucleus will be there. So in order to get a fully developed individual, so different purpose or different functions should be performed by the individual, right? So for that, zygote divides repeatedly in order to give rise to group of cells. This group of cells forms group of tissues. Group of tissues forms group, we can say, organs, forms full, and it forms what? Organ system. So basic idea is this. Now the basic thing is that now this developing structure is called as what? Now this whole process, we can say that what happens, a cell then begins to form group that develop into different tissues, then organs of the body. This developing, that it gets developed, right? The cell is forming into the tissues, then the organ. This developing structure is called as embryo. So the basic idea is this developing structure is called as. So developing structure means this zygote is dividing repeatedly and forming tissue cells. These cells are formed into tissues. Tissues are formed into organs. This developing structure is called as what? Embryo. And this then what happens? The embryo gets embedded. Embedded means what? Embedded. Embedded means so this embryo, after the zygote embryo is formed, this embryo is embedded onto the uterus. So the basic idea is embedded means it's basically sticking onto that. Okay. So basically the embryo continues to develop and it is embedded on the uterus, right? And it gradually, what happens after that? The embryo gradually forms, or we can say this embryo develops into what? So the basic idea here is that then what happens? The embryo then develops and forms different parts of the body, right? Parts of the body like eyes will be formed, legs will be formed, head will be formed, like that many things will be formed, right? Stage of embryo, this is nothing but the developing stage. So this stage embryo, so the embryo is embedded into the what? Uterus, right? After that, what happens? The embryo then develops the different parts: eyes, legs, heads, etc. And what happens? The stage of embryo in which all the body parts can be identified is called as fetus. Fetus. So the basic idea is fetus or fetus, okay, pronunciation you can do. So the basic idea is that embryo then embedded into the uterus, right? Then embryo forms different parts of the body, right? Eyes, legs are formed. This developing stage, or the stage in which the eyes, legs, head, etc. body parts are identified. Okay, the stage of embryo, right? And try to understand the stage of embryo where the eyes, legs, heads, all parts of body are identified is called as fetus or fetus, we can say. Majorly fetus. Okay. So the basic idea is that then what happens? Then when the development of fetus is completed, the mother gives birth to the child. Right? So this is the whole process which takes place. So I'll just repeat my whole process. So after development of embryo is what? Zygote divides repeatedly to form what? Cells, group of cells, then tissues, then organs. This developing zygote or the structure, developing into structures, that is nothing but an embryo, right? Cells is formed, tissues is formed, organs is formed, that is nothing but developing structure, that is called as embryo. So the embryo is embedded means it gets stuck or a stick, it's basically sticking onto the what? Uterus. Then sticking into the uterus, where what happens? The embryo what develops and forms different parts of the body. The stage in which the stage of the embryo in which all the body parts are identified, right? This stage is called as what? For a fetus, right? So the fetus is formed. Then after that, when complete development of the fetus takes place, that the whole body, hair, and all that development happens. After that, the mother gives birth to the child. Okay, so that's the main thing here.